G'day YouTube and Twitter friends, it's Aussie Activist here. So this is my first proper video log, and I'm going to talk about an issue tonight that's a current issue in the world. Basically I'm going to talk about what's happening with Iran, Israel and the US. So many different things have happened. We're only in February, the end of February, we're not even in March yet. And so many different things are happening already in this war, in this lead up to war, what could quite possibly turn into World War III. So over the last few days I've put together some information about what I've been researching in regards to this issue, and it's something that I feel that the general public really need to know about. Our mainstream media is only showing one side of things. They're not showing both sides, they're not showing Iran's sides, and they're not showing basically what's really going on. If you scratch the surface, I'm sure you also will find these things. All this information that I'm going to give you tonight is widely available on the internet through websites such as infowars.com, globalresearch.ca, naturalnews.com. There are so many different websites out there where you can go and get this information. Just Google it. All it takes is a brain and some fingers, and I really urge everybody in the world to start doing that. Don't just take what your mainstream media says for gospel. Remember, they are paid corporate companies. Here in Australia, who owns most of our media? Mr. Murdoch. What's happening in the UK? The hacking scandals. So, you know, come on people, wake up to smell the coffee. Anyway, back to Iran. Firstly, before I start in the information, I actually want to play some audio from the Infowars Nightly News podcast, and this was from Monday in America. Alex Jones is not on, he's actually out on the road, so one of the Infowars teams is doing it, but this is basically just a little bit of audio that I want to play in specific in regards to mainstream media and Iran, and it gets into some Iran stuff. So here we go. If you can just listen to this for a few minutes, and then I'll get into some other stuff about Iran as well.
The war with Iran and how so many people out there are beating the war drums to try to push us into that situation. He dared to say that we should follow law in America, which is now run by a group of lawless thugs, lawless tyrants in Washington. So he was fired. And then Pat Buchanan was fired by MSNBC, and as Paul Craig Roberts explains, both pundits had wide followings and were appreciated for speaking frankly. They've now both been fired. So what's going on here? He says, the voice of the mainstream media is now uniform. Americans hear one voice, one message, and the message is propaganda. Well, of course it is. It's all the same propaganda for war, propaganda for drinking more aspartame, propaganda for taking more vaccines that contain dangerous chemical adjuvants and even toxic metals that cause neurological damage. It's always the same voice telling you to do things that will get you killed or steal your money or make you a slave of the system. That's what the mainstream media is today now. It's a brainwashing, corporate-controlled hoax media system that has nothing to do with reality, but everything to do with enslaving you in a system of total mindless consumerism and self-damage through pharmaceuticals, through food additives, through chemical pesticides that you spray on your lawn, all of these things. That's what the media exists for today. Drink more soda, buy more stuff that you don't need, and then kill yourself and your family with all these toxic chemicals that are in the food, in the water, and in the medicines. That's what the media exists for today. Those are my comments, not Paul Craig Roberts' comments. Although I guess he would probably agree with that. But continuing with Paul Craig Roberts' story, he says that President Obama and members of Congress, along with Tel Aviv, continue to assert that Iran is making a nuclear weapon, despite public contradiction by the US Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta and the CIA as well. I mean, they use this slippery language where they say, well, Iran has enough nuclear material to make a weapon, to make a bomb. Well, so does every hospital in the US. There's enough nuclear material in all the x-ray machines and the CAT scans to make a dirty bomb that could kill millions of people if you released it in New York City or something like that, it doesn't mean the hospital is making a weaponized version of that material. The same thing is true with Iran. It doesn't mean Iran is weaponizing the raw material to make a deliverable weapon. That it doesn't mean that. But in the media now, and again, these political charlatans keep playing these word games with us. Say, oh, well, Iran could be making a nuclear weapon, or they have enough material now to make 3 weapons, 4 weapons, 5 weapons, conveniently ignoring the fact that those weapons don't exist. So they keep pushing for war. Getting back to Paul Craig Roberts, he says there is no evidence that Iran has nukes or is making nukes. No evidence whatsoever. Again, you can read the full text of this story on Infowars.com. It's up there right now. Paul says the problem that truth faces is that the Western media continually lies. Of course they do. Now, he goes in to talk about Syria and Iran, but then he gets into China. Check this out. China is a more difficult problem. Washington's plan is to cut China off from independent sources of energy. China's oil investment in eastern Libya is the reason Gaddafi was overthrown, and oil is one of the main reasons that Washington has targeted Iran. China has large oil investments in Iran and gets 20% of its oil from Iran. So therefore, these are my words now, therefore, the U.S. attacking Iran is one way to cut off this energy resource from China. Do you think China might have a few words about that? Do you think China and Russia might mind it if we start cutting off their oil supplies? You bet they would. In fact, Paul speaks to that. The risks for Washington have multiplied, he says. If Washington proceeds, the information that is conveyed to Russia and China is that they are next in line after Iran. You see, this is how we can all get drawn into a terrible world war. It can happen just like you're seeing it happen today, where again the media is pushing for war and everybody else is going along with it, and those who are against it get fired or censored or criticized. This is the way it works, and the result is we're going to end up in a situation where millions of innocent people are killed, and we're drawn into yet more war, which will centralize yet more power in the hands of the corrupt few who run Washington today. You think about it. Obama wants to get reelected, right? Of course he does. How is he going to do it? Strike Iran before October, or in October, before the election, basically, so that the people just stupidly rally around whatever current president is sitting in the White House at the moment that war is not even declared, but just enacted. Again, they'll bypass Congress. They won't even declare an act of war. They'll just start bombing these so-called enemy nations without justification. Look, enough on that. Check.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to play you from the Infowars podcast. So as you can see, important information. Now, further research, just in regards to Iran. Here we go. This is just something else. This is in this actual document. If you go to Infowars.com, you'll see here General Dempsey. Just going to get back to the top. General Dempsey, Iran rational actor, not after nukes. Goes on to say here, a top US military official has described Iran as a rational actor in the international arena, stating that the Islamic Republic is not after producing nuclear weapons. Goes on to say, speaking in a nationally televised interview in the CNN's Fareed Zakira GPS show on Sunday, chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, said, "We are of the opinion that Iran is a rational actor." Dempsey pointed out that US officials aren't convinced Iran has decided to build atomic armaments. Okay, and if you actually scroll further down here, it gives you a little bit more information. Now, what I want to point out is down here. Despite the widely publicized claims by the US, Israel, and some of the European allies that Iran's nuclear program may include military aspect, Iran insists on its civilian nature, arguing that as a signatory, get this, as a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, and a member of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, it has the right to develop and acquire nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. Now, let me just stop there. The NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the Atomic Energy Agency, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Out of those, America has not signed the NPT, and nor has Israel. So that's a fact. Iran has signed the treaty to say that they will only use nuclear items for peaceful purposes. Israel and the US haven't. So the question lays, what gives Israel and the US the right to sit there and tell Iran what they can and cannot do when they are not even signatory to the NPT? So that's just one fact. Other things, like I'll show you a photo, a picture basically, of the US bases that are currently surrounding Iran. Now, people keep saying, oh, Iran is, putting pressure on America and Israel. Now, I want to point out how many bases there are surrounding Iran. There's not 1, there's not 5, there is not 10, 15, 20. There is over 40 bases around Iran. Now, each little dot you'll see here are bases. So this is the picture. And as you can see, this is Iran in the center here, this blue one. And all those little dots are bases. They're all US bases surrounding Iran. So you see how easy it would be if Israel were to strike Iran, how quickly America could respond on the ground. Quite quickly, I'd assume, considering there are 43 bases nearby. Not just the bases. Then we have the fact of the boats. Yes, the nuclear-armed boats that America has in the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. From what I'm aware, is between 4 to 6 of them. Then on top of that, you have Britain's highest powered nuclear boat, and you also have the French naval ship. So you're looking at 6 to 8, 7 to 8 boats in the Strait of Hormuz to put pressure on Iran. Then you've got the whole Syria issue, and you've got the Russian warship docked in Syria, well, which was previously docked in Syria. I'm not sure if it's still actually there. Then you've got the massive amount of troops that have gone into Israel from the US to do war games. Also the ones that have gone into other countries such as Kazakhstan. I think there's a few other smaller nations that are actually hosting some big numbers, like 9,000 US troops. Why are these troops starting to station? Why are all these missions, like war games? I was reading actually about a war game. What's it called? That's it. Bold Alligator 2012. Bold Alligator 2012 is war games along the US East Coast. It's the largest amphibian exercise in the West in a decade, and it's staged, get this, to simulate a potential Iranian invasion of allied Persian Gulf country and marine landing on their shore. So basically it's going to be a air bombardment, sea bombardment, and then boots on the ground. So that's what they're going to be training for. The practicing with the US will be the French, the British, the Italian, the Dutch, the Australian, and the New Zealand military. How's that for cooperation? Pretty good. So, in other words, Washington is contemplating a massive air and sea bombardment followed by an invasion. That's what they're practicing for, isn't it? So, kind of Vietnam-like, kind of like when Australia landed overseas and we all got blown up getting out of our boats. You know, I don't want to see this happen again. I don't want to see our young men go over to a country that we really shouldn't be in and blow their people up. This is just beyond ridiculous. We're in Afghanistan. We shouldn't be there. We were in Iraq. We shouldn't be there. We're still in Iraq. Get our guys home. Anyway, back to Iran. Here we go. We've had all these Iranian nuclear scientists 5 assassination attempts. 4 of them were successful. 1 guy got away. He wasn't killed, lucky him. Good on him. Then we've had the retaliation attacks. The Israeli diplomats being bombed in Indonesia, Philippines area. I mean, it blows your mind at what's actually going on. Then to link all that, basically, these terrorist organisations who we all think like Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, all this information is coming to light that a lot of these people have actually met with top Washington officials, met with CIA agents, and some of them are actually funded by, get it, Washington and the CIA. Hello. Okay, so in particular one's called MEK. Now, how MEK is important. MEK is actually an Iranian dissident group financed, trained and armed by the Israeli Secret Service. US officials tell NBC News, so that's mainstream media I think in America, that MEK, designated a foreign terrorist organisation by US State Department, enjoys considerable support amongst Washington powers elite, as disclosed by the Christian Science Monitor website. High-powered array of former US officials from Rudy Giuliani to Howard Dean have paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak in support of MEK. Why would top US officials or former top US officials be paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak highly of MEK? Oh, they were paid. They were paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak highly about MEK. Do we not get it? The world revolves around the money. Follow the money, you follow the answers. Okay. Next thing, Bush administration allocated $400 million for black op wars against Iran. A good portion of this is suspected of funding the Israel efforts we're seeing now. I mean, this information is widely available across the internet. I mean, I'm no dummy. I'm a university student. I am studying a Bachelor of Social Sciences this year, majoring in Peace and Development. I'm not an idiot. I've worked with asylum seekers and refugees for the last 3 years. I've been a human rights activist since 2007. I've been a volunteer since I was 8 years old. People are my life. People are what I enjoy. And when I see all these wars going on, I see all this propaganda on TV, it just really, really gets me cranky. And when I see my country going down the tube and I look at the people walking around who are just completely not with it, have no idea this is going on, and like I post on Facebook, hey, did you know World War III is getting pretty close? And they're like, oh wow, no, didn't hear any of that. No, of course you wouldn't, because you watch mainstream media paid corporate propaganda news. And what are you supposed to do? Most of the time, they just look at it and go, Facebook is too much more interesting. So people, I ask you, if you see this on Facebook, I'm not getting Facebook down, just close it. Go and have a look at some news on the internet, and independent news. Use the internet for what it's there for, the sharing of information. Not sitting on games, playing, wasting your life away. And I'm sorry if you take offence to that, because I was actually there once before. I was addicted to Facebook. I couldn't get off it. I loved farming. I loved all the games. And now, seriously, there is so much more going on in the world that you need to get off Facebook and you need to get out there and live it and see what is going on around the world. Anyway, back to Iran, sorry. All this is just going on and nobody really has any clue. There's some good websites I want to point out. The Stop War Coalition, firstly the Stop War Coalition of Canada, are actually having some protests from the 2nd to the 4th of March 2012. the protests against Netanyahu Harper visit. So if you go to stopwar.ca, check out their website, have a look at what's going on if you're in the Canada area. I'm not exactly sure where in Canada it's going to be, but check it out, get involved, and let these guys know that we don't want a war against Iran, we want a peaceful planet. I just want to say a few things about Darwin Base and what the guy on the InfoWars podcast was talking about China and separating China and sort of segregating that from the world. Aussies, wake up. Look at Darwin. We're going to have 200 troops there this year, and by the end of next year we're going to have 2,500 US troops on our shore in Darwin. China is pissed. China is cranky with the Australian-US alliance. Basically all the Australian-US alliance is Australian kissing US ass. Basically. In a nutshell. I need you guys, if you don't want war, if you don't want to see more of our Aussie men die, or your brothers, your sisters, your husbands going out to war, if you don't want that, stand up and say something. Email your MPs, write your MPs, call your MPs. Don't stop until you get the answer that we will not be involved in this war. A war of nonsense, a war of hypocrisy, and a war of aggression. America and Israel do not run the world. Now, Obama did say he labelled himself the President of the Pacific. Excuse me, Obama? You don't live here. You're not Aussie. You're not the president of nobody here. Get it through your head. You do not run this world. So, Mr. Obama, I hope you really do see this, because you do not own us and you will not run us. Your NDAA bill may include all of us suspected terrorists because we speak out against the system, but you don't own us and you will not stop us. So you can get that right now. We do not agree with the war in Iran. We do not agree with the lies, the hypocrisy, and the bullshit that's coming out through mainstream media. We're on to you all. We know what's going on, and there is just a lot more people now waking up every day. Another thing I urge you all to do, if you're in a fluoridated area, do not drink your fluoridated tap water. Don't drink it. It's poison. The fluoride was changed in the early 90s. It is now sodium monofluorophosphate. Google it. Get a chemical app for your iPhone. See what it does. It's in your toothpaste, it's in your whiteners, it's in your water. You can't escape it. It builds up and doesn't leave your system. It causes neurological and nervous system problems. Get a chemical app. Look these things up. Aspartame, aluminum, barium, chemtrails. They're all chemicals. They're in our skies, they're in our food, they're in our drinks, they're in our toothpaste, they're in everything. Where's cancer and all this coming from? Where's all the increases in all this stuff coming from? Preservatives, additives, chemicals, GMs, stay away from them. I just don't understand how people can see what is going on in the world and not act. And if you don't see what's going on in the world, lay off the fluoride. If you're depressed, go out and volunteer. Go and volunteer with refugees. Go and listen to a refugee story about how they witnessed their entire family blown to shreds and then had to lay on a rickety boat for a month. Go and listen to somebody's story. Because I tell you what, if you live in Australia and you have a house over your head and you get an income every week, you ain't got nothing to complain about compared to what some of these people have got to complain about. I used to suffer depression. I suffered it severely until I started volunteering with refugees and asylum seekers. And I have not suffered depression since, because I don't have anything to be depressed about in my life. My life is nowhere near as bad as others. People just need to really wake up. don't be materialistic. Don't just think about yourself. Think about this whole world that you live in. We are all connected. We have, thank you to the internet, love you, we have that ability to be in each other's backyards. Embrace love, embrace life, embrace people. So anyway, I'm going to end this video blog for tonight. I think I've done pretty well for my first night, and I hope you find it all interesting. If you have any comments, I'm on Twitter, Aussie Activist, AUSSIE ACTVIST, Aussie Activist. I'll also put this on my WordPress or my website. If you go to freeuganda.au.com, that's freeuganda.au.com, click on news. You'll also get links to this video as well. So anyway, thanks guys. Just a few links before I go. WikiLeaks, love you guys. Thanks so much for everything you've done. Julian, Christine, love you both. Globalresearch.ca, Infowars.com, prisonplanet.com, stopwarcoalition.org, that's for Sydney Stop War Coalition, and stopwar.ca, and also Occupy Sydney. Love yous. Good night everyone, and thanks again for watching.